Hello, all the humans. I'm Ron Russell, Program Director here at HSGP. Welcome to HSGP's Digital Sunday Speaker event. We will continue to provide content digitally until we can gather together again. If anybody wants to help with content, feel free to see me, one of the other directors, the program team. Really, anybody can direct you, or better yet, there's a web form on our website that you can submit your suggestions for Sunday speakers. We are still looking for Humanist Minutes, by the way. So if anyone wants to present a Humanist Minute, reach out to one of us and we will be able to plug you into that time slot during the agenda. Stay muted unless you're actively speaking. Don't be offended if I mute you due to background noise. Raise your hand during the Q&A and I will call on you. You can type it out and I will ask the question of our speaker or unmute yourself and simply ask the question. Practice the 10 commitments of humanism, and after the recording stops, feel free to hang out and chit chat and talk about it off recording. So with that, I would like to pass it over to Luke for the Executive Director update, then Alex, then Mars. Luke, you're up.
Thank you, Ron. Good morning, everybody. My name is Luke Douglas. I'm the Executive Director of the Humanist Society of Greater Phoenix. And I don't think I'm the only one who slept better last night than I've slept all week. We've all had a lot to watch. And I think as a humanist community, as secular Americans, we have always had the purpose of providing the continuity and stability across administrations, both hostile and friendly, across courts, hostile and friendly, that allows us all to live our best lives with or without political power and outside of, and hopefully above whatever partisan rhetoric might be going on at a given moment. And so for many of us, this means a moment to step back from activism that we've been doing outside of HSGP and maybe refocus our time, our donation efforts, where many of us have been supporting partisan causes. Time is now to really step closer to home and say, this is time to focus on community building, because at the end of the day, it doesn't matter who is in the White House or who is in the state legislature if we don't have a community that supports us at a personal level and at a family level. And so I want to give a huge shout out to everyone who has been with us through all the difficulties, all the ups and downs, mostly downs of 2020. I want to give a shout out to everyone who has either become a member or renewed their membership. So wave hello. We'd love to give you a shout out and a welcome in the chat. And just thank you, all of you, for staying as engaged as you have been through these digital events that are just so different from what was familiar just a short time ago. I wanted to highlight just one thing quickly. As many of you know, we are involved in social services involving the incarcerated population. People who are in prison need support and community, just like the rest of us. And Ron has been running a Pen Pals program for many years now, right? For some time that there's been a Pen Pal program for incarcerated persons to have someone to talk to. I was recently asked to officiate a wedding where one of the members of the couple was incarcerated, and it's also a same-sex couple, so double strike on getting married in any church. And have reached out to the humanist community to ask if someone can officiate their wedding, and of course I was happy to work with them as soon as it's COVID safe to resume that conversation. And a couple of additional ideas have come up for HSGP to be involved in serving the incarcerated population and the population that is in that halfway stage of being reintroduced into society. So if you are interested, anybody here is interested in sort of engaging with that population in particular, I would love to talk with you about ways that we can make that happen. I just want to know that we have the volunteer interest and enthusiasm to follow through if I'm going to reach out and start moving forward on these opportunities so that we can really make an impact in our community. And I think that's all. Alex?
Thank you very much, Luke. I'd like to echo his sentiments that community building is something that we treasure here. It's something that we would like to continue to do as far as moving into 2021. Speaking of 2021, and I know we're all sick of ballots and elections and stuff like that, but HSGP, if you check your email, HSGP just sent out a nominations form for the 2021 board. We'd like to hear your voice, especially if you'd like to serve on the board. This sausage gets made by lots of different inputs, and we need your spice. So if you want to add to that, just let us know. We would love to hear your voice on the board and help continue building this wonderful, amazing, loving community. Please do consider joining a very, very fun board. We have a lot of fun sometimes, well, most of the time. But please do add your voice. We want to hear from you. The other thing I wanted to mention is I want to say a very, very big thank you to the nominations committee. Anita and Mars have put in a lot of work, and from me personally and from the current board, thank you for all that you've done. We greatly appreciate it. That being said, thank you everybody for attending today. It's good to see nice, happy faces again. And I look forward to hearing from you after the meeting is over. Thank you so much. And Mars, you're up.
Thanks, Alex. Hi, everybody. I'm Mars Delator, your volunteer coordinator. And I'm happy to spend a little bit of time reviewing some calendar events that we have. It is really wonderful to see how the secular community has been growing. And we have a lot of events going on ourselves, but the whole community is hosting quite a few programs online. The best place to check those out is through Secular Coalition for Arizona at their website, secularaz.org, and just check on into their What's Happening section for the events. So some of the highlights are through Free Thought Arizona out of Tucson, 2 p.m. today, so a little bit after today's meeting, grab some lunch and then join them for Layel Rabat. She's going to be talking about capturing the moment, how temporary outrage can evolve into sustainable change. So something we definitely can all benefit from after lunch. And then we continue seeing the programs through the Arizona End of Life options for the 6 choices we all have to end our lives. And the program continues throughout November and into December. And this is really great information for us all personally, but it's also something that is important to make momentum with legislative change to support us having different options. And we have the Freedom from Religion Foundation Valley of the Sun edition, doing some fun programs. They have a virtual social during the work week. After work, it starts at 5:45. There's some great discussions, and they do get a little bit silly there, so it's a fun time after work. And echoing again what everyone has been saying, it's all about all the time that everyone has been giving. There's so many volunteers among us dedicating all of their time. I just want to give a shout out to those folks that are in HSGP that are volunteering to host events. Some are in person now, but most of them are still just online. So you can join up to hike South Mountain with our long-term member Sharon Lee on Tuesdays and Thursdays, along with another social group. And then on the first Thursday of the month, the East Valley Gardeners Club meets at the community center on the patio. So just everybody be safe as you're doing those together activities. You can also join in person with Let's Geography and Let's Eat Geography. So monthly they will go out and eat at a restaurant, and then another time in the month meet virtually to discuss the country that was related to the restaurant that they went to. So if you missed eating at the Mediterranean Deli and Restaurant, you still can join the group on Thursday, November 19th to discuss Algeria, and you'll hear about what the next country is and the next plan to eat out on December 3rd. It happens on Thursdays. Lots of things happen on Thursdays. We also have our coffee talk discussion group Thursday mornings at 10 a.m. and our Humanist meditation group Saturdays at 10 a.m., both hosted by Richard Dewey. Oh, I'm sorry, wanted to say this is very important. Let's Geography is hosted by Steve Trezisi and Teresa Kokel. So thank you very much for volunteering to do that program. And Richard Dewey for Coffee Talk and Humanist Meditation. Then our monthly Humanities Project and Cultural Presentation is hosted by Zenaida Quintana and Jennifer White. And that is coming up on November 13th. It's going to be Love Wins Over Hate. We'll watch the video together and then discuss it as personal transformations from anger to empathy. We have a regularly scheduled Leaving Religion discussion group hosted by Elizabeth Sowell. It's on November 15th. It's discussing the topic, what's in your secular toolkit and what lessons have we learned to be strong after this year? How have we found our secular communities and managed our mental health? We have a couple of book clubs, and one of them is our intersectional book club book study with Tanya Gerard. This will be Saturday, November 21st in the afternoon at 4 o'clock. It's creative exploration of self-care and taking responsibility for our well-being. And there's many options for reading materials. So like with most book clubs, don't feel like you have to read the book to attend. Just check out some of the information that's available through Meetup, and you could read a couple of articles and join the discussion. Our next Sunday speaker will be November 22nd with Shira Zias and Rick Mitchell from the Homeless ID Project. They're going to join us for a discussion about homelessness and ways to help. And our other book club, our virtual book club, held Saturday at 10 o'clock, November 28th. Henry Geist and Vici Duarte. The book is What Algorithms Want. And this is going to start a discussion on mathematical logic, philosophy, and magical thinking, how they all combine for problem solving. And if you do want to get the book for that, and you use Amazon, please remember to use HSGP's information through Amazon Smiles whenever you shop on Amazon. And if you're interested in that information, if you're not sure how to get it, just go ahead and chat us up. We'll hook you up with those things. Again, thanks, Alex, for mentioning the nominating committee. I wanted to give a shout out also to Anita Romanowski and Kathy Pettigrew for helping with the nominating committee, and to Roxanne Arith for helping with programs. Also, Jordan Foltz for helping with IT and media, helping to get some of those videos posted on YouTube. And I know we often say that you can support HSGP by visiting YouTube and subscribing to our channel and watching our videos. And I hope you all have done that. It's a really easy way and important way that you can support HSGP. And if you don't know how to do it, that's okay. I get you. Go ahead, message me in the chat. You can do it privately. I won't tell anyone. And I also want to give the last shout out to our fantastic board of directors. They are Alex Zygmunt, Athena Gibbons, Sarah Jones, Carol Abel, Ron Russell, James Osborne, Howard Johnson, and Jennifer White. And I want to say your name also at the end of this list. So if you've been a member for a year and you're interested in joining the board, I highly recommend it. It keeps getting more and more fun all of the time. You're really not going to do it on your own. You know, you're not going to bump the president out or anything. Come join the president. Be a co-chair president. Join in on any of the positions and just lend a hand. It doesn't have to all fall to you. I know it sounds scary because you never did these kind of things before and you think that you can't, but you can, and we'll help you, and it's going to be so much fun, and it's going to be fantastic. Again, if you have any questions about it, any interest at all, you can message me in the chat, message anyone, reach out to us at, reach out to me, volunteer@hsgp.org. And just kind of get in touch with us. I hope to hear from you. I talked a lot. I always do. Okay. Thanks, everybody. Hope to hear from you.
Thanks, Mars. That was great. So today we have Ann Schneider, PhD, with the post-election wrap-up. But before we get into her presentation, I'd like to go over why this aligns with our values, or the 10 commitments of humanism. Our commitment to service and participation, putting our values into action in ways that positively impact our communities and society as a whole. By the commitment to peace and social justice. We have an intense commitment to social justice and the affirmation that human rights and personal autonomy belong to all people. And the commitment to responsibility. Being a responsible person involves steadfast attention to what is right and willfully bearing the blame or praise of our actions or inactions. We must all stand for our values, because if we stand for nothing, what will we fall for? Ann Schneider, PhD, is a retired political science professor and former dean at the College of Public Programs at Arizona State University. She grew up in Ellis County, Oklahoma, along with her sister Linda and her brother Tim, the children of Bert and Margaret Larson. She attended school in Fargo, Oklahoma, and then graduated from Oklahoma State University and earned her PhD in political science from Indiana University. She has a lifelong interest in how public policy can bring about more fairness and more compassion in society. She has 2 grown children, Joffrey and Chris, and her hobbies include walking, reading, hiking, and road trips. Please give a big HSGP welcome to our speaker, Ann Schneider.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Ron. No, that was terrific. Whoa, I don't even know what to say. Yikes. What a week we've been through. I finally began to relax, I think, a little bit yesterday morning, even though, you know, I never, ever watch television all day long until this week. All day, switching back and forth, MSNBC, CNN, and then I switch over to Fox, interestingly enough, because I really want to know what they say. And maybe they would have some contact so we get some idea of what Trump is saying. Anyway, good morning, everyone. When I agreed to do this talk, I thought I'd have plenty of time between Tuesday and Sunday to figure out the implications of this election, because that's kind of what I label the talk. What are the implications here? Well, whoa, finally, sometime yesterday, maybe late Friday yesterday, I finally got around my arms around a few things, narrowed it down to a few things to say. There's so much to say. How does a person even know where to start? So here is what I got to say. Three big takeaways from this election. First, a gigantic historic inflection point, the defeat of Donald Trump and his threat to democracy. I'll come back to that. The second one, is this win big enough to deal with essential constitutional reforms we need in this country? The Electoral College, Citizens United, and reforming the Supreme Court. And third, what do we do now? What do we do now? Us progressives, us humanists, Biden, what do we do now? But first, as they say on NPR, but first the news, where are we? Well, Biden and Harris have won. And let me just make a big shout out to Joe Biden for, I think, running a fabulous campaign of unity, calmness, rationality. Talk about humanist values. Let's remember, you know, things like being calm, rational, dealing with facts. Those, wow, important. Anyway, and Kamala Harris, of course. Wow, what a history-making thing. A woman in the VP spot, a South Asian immigrant child woman, and an African-American woman. Wow. So this is where we are. The US Senate is a tie right now. I think all of you know this, but I'm just going to go over it. If I'm wrong, correct me. Maybe I'm wrong, but it's a tie right now. But with Tillis in North Carolina and Sullivan in Alaska, those will go Republican. So the Republicans will have 50 and the Demos 48. with runoffs in January in Georgia. And the Democrats, of course, have a chance to win those. And if they do, Kamala Harris will, with her vote, send the chairs of the committees and everything else to the demos. But if Republicans win one or more of those, they will again have a majority in the US Senate. The Democrats have a chance of controlling those. So the Republican, that runoff is January the 5th. And oh my, are we going to be watching what's going to happen there? I think Trump lost Georgia, as it turned out, by, I don't know for sure how many votes. I should have checked it, but it was more than the 100 or so. It was in the thousands. It might have ended up being 10 or 12,000. I don't know for sure. So it's certainly possible that the Democrats can win the Senate, and would there actually then have control of the US government, the presidency, the Senate, and the House. Demos lost a few seats in the House, but I'm not going to blame Nancy Pelosi for that. I'm from Oklahoma. 2 years ago, Kendra Horn won a congressional seat, a Democrat in Oklahoma. How'd she do that? Well, I don't know. Well, but this time she lost. That's not, Nancy, there's nothing Nancy Pelosi could possibly have done about that. But that's where we are. In terms of state legislatures, that's still bleak. We went into this with 29 state legislatures controlled by Republicans. I think we've come out with 30. So are there any court cases that could turn the election from Biden to Trump? And there's some constitutional lawyers on here. Marie, I saw you on here a while ago. I don't know where you went. So you may know more about this than I do, but I don't think there's any court cases that can make a difference here. And I'm a political scientist, not a lawyer, but I'll tell you why I think this. I think it because the lawyers tell me you have to have a case to take to court. You have to have a case. You can't just say, throw out the mail-in ballot. You can't do that. You have to have a case. Well, let's suppose they take this case I read about in Maricopa County, where there were poll watchers who were not supposed to direct voters. And if you make a mistake on your ballot, it may come up with a green or a red light. And the green light means go ahead and submit it. The red light means give me a new ballot, I'll start over. And there were some poll watchers, my goodness, who told people to just punch the green key. Well, Biden won by 20,000 votes. Do we really think punching green and red keys would change that result? You see, there may have been a poll watcher or two or a dozen who made a mistake. It's not going to impact that vote. And I think that's true in almost every state where Trump can issue some kind of a challenge. Now, like I say, I'm not a lawyer. I may be wrong. We got to wait and see, but I don't think so. So I think this is done. This is done. And I have three big takeaways on this. The first one, implication number one, this is a huge win for democracy to simply defeat Donald Trump. Let's not underestimate that. You were talking about humanist values, humanist principles. Okay, things like science, things like facts, things like rationality. What about logic, for heaven's sakes, okay? What about competence? I'm not sure competence is a humanist value, but we could claim it, couldn't we? We removed from office a person who does not believe in science or facts or logic or rationality. We remove from office a person who has shown over 4 years how incompetent he is. Incompetent. Look at what he has not done in terms of the coronavirus. Look at what he has not done in terms of the economic disaster for unemployed people. Look at all the things he has not done, as well as the attacks on our democratic institutions themselves. We removed him from office. This is a huge, historic win. We removed from office someone who is as corrupt, surely, as any of the dictators from the other countries that we read about. The corruption is incredible, absolutely incredible. We have an emoluments clause in the US Constitution. He's not supposed to be making money off his position. He got impeached, although not convicted, because he was trading foreign policy protections and money to countries if they would help his own personal reelect. Can you imagine? Can you imagine the corruption? Remember the one where he redirected a bunch of Air Force airplanes to land at his place on some island somewhere to refuel instead of where they were supposed to land? Do you remember that? We even forget these things. He won't release his taxes. We have no idea who he owes money to. We have no ideas why. He sat in a room with Vladimir Putin, dismissed the English-speaking recorder and interpreter, so there's no one in that room except him, Putin, and the Russian person, right, who was recording the meeting. The only thing we know actually about what went on at that meeting was what he said and what the Russians said. Can you imagine? Incompetence, corruption, lack of respect for democratic institutions. Can you imagine the President of the United States constantly railing about fake news, rigged elections? He won't send appointments to the Senate when he knows he can't get them confirmed. And then when the court tells him they have outlived their acting thing, he just ignores it. The lack of respect for our democratic institutions, he's totally politicized the Supreme Court, totally. I mean, not that they have been totally politicized, but he's doing everything he can to make sure that they are, and the other courts as well. He lacks empathy, compassion, and humility. He is racist, sexist, and homophobic. Can you imagine that we somehow managed to elect a president who is racist, sexist, and homophobic? Here, this is 2020, folks. But now, back to my point, we've taken him out of office, and that is a huge, he's a liar. Can you imagine? The Washington Post keeps track of the number of lies. I don't know what it is now, the average 10 or 12 lies or misstatements per day coming out of the White House. How can a democracy sustain itself when we have a president who lies to us? You know, I'm older than most of you, and I'm old enough, some of the rest of you are too, to remember the shock that went through my, I think, junior high school classroom when it was revealed that Dwight Eisenhower had lied to us about Gary Powers. He had lied. Reports were that Gary Powers was a spy flying over Russia and had been shot down. And Eisenhower said it was not true. And then it was determined that he lied. Well, we are lied to day after day after day. And now we have removed that person. There's been a massive expansion of executive power and a total disrespect for the separation of powers. Whoa, and he is gone. And he is gone. And in that place, we have someone who is, I'll have to admit, Joe Biden was not my first choice amongst all the Democratic contenders. But my gosh, by the time this election was underway, he was my choice because he was the one I thought could defeat Trump. And my gosh, it was close. Do you realize how close this was? I think Biden will end up winning by about 4 million votes, 4 or 5 million votes. And even in those closer states, his margin is now up to 12, 20, 15, 20,000. But still, this was so terribly close. Okay, so let's not, even as we realize it was not a big wave, a big blue wave. We certainly did not get everything we want. We lost some wonderful public officials right here in Arizona. I don't understand that. I don't understand why Adrian Fontes lost the Maricopa recorders office, 2,400 votes. I don't understand that. But let's not, in our despair over the fact that it was not a big blue wave, let's not lose fact that if Donald Trump had won, think about where we would be going now as a democracy. Think of the counterfactual. Okay, we are going to be able, with Biden and Harris, even if there is a Republican Senate, we're going to be able to start restoring the integrity of our democratic values in this country. All right, implication number 2. This is not big enough for significant constitutional change. And one of the things when I was talking to you and to Roxanne about the program was to talk about, all right, let's not focus just on the election, but let's talk about 3 critical constitutional changes that are needed in this country. And unfortunately, this election was not big enough to do it, but it's a step in the right direction. So let me talk about these. I'm going to start with Electoral College reform. I looked it up this morning. The last poll most recent poll I could find, 61% of the American people think the Electoral College should be done away with, and that we should go to a popular vote count. And, you know, I've wondered myself at times, I've thought, my gosh, I sit through hundreds of elections, starting when? 3rd grade president, all the way, you know, forever. So have you. This is the only election where the winner doesn't win. The winner doesn't get the office. That the Electoral College is an anachronism. And surely that percent of the public that think it needs to be repealed will grow after the drama we've been put through this last week. It will take a constitutional amendment on the one hand to try to change the Electoral College, but there's an alternative way to do away with the Electoral College. We can't get a constitutional amendment. That takes 2/3 of the House. We don't have 2/3 of the US House. 2/3 of the Senate. We don't have 2/3 of the Senate, not even close. We'll be lucky if we even have a 1-person majority counting the VP, okay? So we're not going to get that. There is an alternative way to do this. It's called the National Popular Vote Interstate Compact. And I did promise I'd talk a little bit about this because people may not even know about this. The states are able, if they want, to pass state legislation to join into an interstate compact. And this one is called the National Popular Vote Interstate Compact. 16 states so far have joined it with 196 electoral votes. It only takes 270. Mostly Republican states are not in it. Here's the way it would work. The state legislature, actually, the Arizona House passed this back several years ago, and you might be interested in knowing that J.D. Mesnard was one who led the coalition to pass this in the Arizona House. Arizona is only one of 3 states that any chamber that was controlled by Republicans has passed it. Here's the way it would work. State legislatures pass a law that their state joins the interstate compact to direct their electors to vote for the national popular vote winner. See, state legislatures direct their electors by law or by constitution as to how to vote. And in almost all states, and the Supreme Court just upheld this against faithless electors not long ago, that the state law that directs them to vote for the state popular vote, yes, you have to do that. If that's what the law says, yes, you have to do that, okay? Because that's the way the votes are cast. You know, you cast your vote for that slate. Well, this would be a compact, and it would take effect when enough states have joined that it will guarantee 270 votes to the national popular vote winner. Did you follow me on this? If enough states pass and join this compact, and they have 270 votes collectively, okay, then this compact goes into effect, and that state law then means that the state, instead of casting its votes for the state winner, it casts its votes for the national popular vote winner. Got that? Okay. That would be a way to do away with the Electoral College without having to amend the United States Constitution to do it. Now, of course, where are those constitutional lawyers? There's going to be arguments. It's going to be arguments that states can't join an interstate compact like that. There's going to be all kinds of arguments. And yet most of the stuff I read indicates that this would work. Now, right now, the Republicans are not particularly interested in doing it, obviously, because the national popular vote favors Democrats because of the cluster of progressive votes on the East and West Coast. But this is an alternative, and they only need 70 more electoral votes from various states to pass this. And in Arizona, in January 2019, a group of Democratic representatives, Powers Handley, Andre Blanc, Gabaldon, Germain, Payton, Rodriguez, Salmon, Teller, Tehran, introduced the National Popular Vote bill here in Arizona. You know, it passed once in Arizona, but the thing is, it's not clear whether states can withdraw from it. Probably they can. So I don't know whether, but this is an alternative. And how might this come about? I would think if it came about, it would come about because of popular pressure to get rid of the Electoral College. Now, how can we get Republican public officials to get on board with getting rid of the Electoral College? That is a huge hill to climb. And Biden and Harris winning this election and getting rid of Donald Trump isn't enough to get rid of the Electoral College. And yet that is some of you may disagree with me on this, but I think it is a significant reform that we've got to do. This letting states hold it, it's not holding it up. We need to count all the votes, but having states able to weigh it in the way they do. See, another way to do this would be if states would give up their winner take all stuff and say, all right, our state is going to allocate our electors proportionately. Well, what state's going to do that? Arizona, instead of having 11 votes that were critical, so we came down to the wire here, instead of that saying we're going to allocate them proportionally so it ends up 6-5, well, I don't think any state's going to be willing to do that. So it's going to be some kind of popular pressure. It's going to be some kind of pressure to try to get a national popular vote bill passed, to try to get enough support in state legislatures that we could actually get this national popular vote interstate compact. That's going to require winning a whole bunch of state legislatures. All of this is going to require progressives somehow to take a message that resonates with people. I wonder why 70 million people voted for Donald Trump. I'm sure you do too. I think part of it is because so many people think all politicians are corrupt, all politicians are incompetent, so what difference does it make? You know, so what difference does it make? But the other thing is, I think they are afraid of Democrats. So much of the public is afraid of Democrats. So many of the TAC ads stick, and I wish they didn't stick. All right, let me talk about Citizens United. Citizens United, as you know, was the Supreme Court case that opened the floodgates to money. That too could be overturned with a ruling by the Supreme Court, dream on. but it also could be overturned with a constitutional amendment, but it could also be overturned with what they call an Article 5 convention, and so could the Electoral College. So let me talk just a minute about what an Article 5 convention is. There are two ways to amend the US Constitution. One's the way we all know about, 2/3 of Congress and then 3/4 of the states. An Article 5 convention is different. It requires 2/3 of the states to petition Congress, send an application to Congress, asking Congress to call a constitutional convention for the purpose of X, for the purpose of overturning Citizens United, or for the purpose of overturning the Electoral College. Now, there's been a whole bunch of states, almost enough, 28, 29, who have petitioned Congress to call a constitutional convention to require a balanced budget. Okay, that one was very much in favor when the Democrats had control of Congress. Now it's not so much favored, but that's called an Article 5 convention. And 5 states have passed resolutions to use this method to overturn Citizens United. 5, California, Illinois, New Jersey, Rhode Island, and Vermont. Well, part of the problem with an Article 5 constitutional convention, both from liberals and conservatives and constitutional scholars, almost all of them, is that once that convention were convened, state legislatures would pick the people, or state conventions as directed by Congress. Once it's convened, the constitutional scholars tend to say it would be on its own, folks. It would be on its own. They would not have to be limited to the reason they were called. That the Supreme Court could not intervene and say, nope, sorry, folks, you can't do that. No state court could. Some of them even say a state could not recall its own delegation, or if they did, its delegation would not have to go home. So the sentiment about an Article 5 amendment convention, because what that convention would do, sorry, I don't want to confuse things here, they would propose an amendment that then goes out to the states. All right, but this is a risky road to go down. Okay, whether you're on the liberal or conservative side of this, it's a risky road to go down, because that could become what they call a runaway convention and go do whatever it wanted. All right, so that brings me to my third big point: composition of the Supreme Court. Now, it's 6-3 right now. It is becoming seriously politicized. In case the Democrats win the Georgia seats, they would be able, if they wanted, to enlarge the Supreme Court, if they could hold the Democratic caucus entirely together. But Biden has said he doesn't support that, because let's suppose they decided to enlarge by 2, that would still then, and appoint 2 liberals to the court. Okay, it'd still be 6-5 in favor of the conservatives. So what if they appoint 4? So then it becomes 7-6. And Biden hasn't said this, but he has said he doesn't support enlarging it. And you may really disagree with me on this, but after thinking about it a lot, I don't support this either, because it could just become a tit for tat. Whoever's in control of the Senate at the moment, you know, in votes to enlarge. It only takes a 51 vote margin in the Senate. And we could go, you know, constantly enlarging. So I think the direction we need to go, and I hope Biden will go in this direction, is we need to depoliticize the Supreme Court, depoliticize it. And there's a wonderful proposal out there by Pete Buttigieg that would require constitutional amendments. But just quickly, let me tell you what that is, because I think it's a novel idea. First, it's a constitutional amendment, which of course we can't get done, but still. Okay, the way it would work is this: the congressional Republicans get to appoint 5 people to the court, Supreme Court. The congressional Democrats get to appoint 5. Then there is a panel drawn at random from the appellate judges. Okay, and that panel then gets to appoint I'm sorry, not the panel. Those 5 that the Republicans appointed and the 5 the demos did, those 10 get to appoint 5 more. But before they appoint those 5 more who only hold 1-year appointments, there's a different panel drawn from the appellate court judges who decide for the next term of the Supreme Court what cases are they going to take. All right. And they have to decide what cases before they know who those last 5 judges are appointed to the Supreme Court. So you have a 15-person Supreme Court, 5 Democrats, 5 Republicans, and 5 chosen by those, and an agenda chosen by another group who didn't know for sure what the partisan break was going to be on the Supreme Court. That would, I think, depoliticize the Supreme Court. And of course, that's not going to happen right now, but I just want to put a germ of that idea out there because I think it's a very interesting idea. So those are the big 3 things, constitutional things we need to get done: reform the Electoral College, overturn Citizens United, and in my view, depoliticize the Supreme Court. Not enlarge it, but depoliticize it. And then my third big takeaway: what do we do now? What in the world do we do now? And I've got a 1-word answer for that, and it's called govern. Simply govern. Let's govern. And Biden actually has an action plan that I read someplace. Rejoin the Paris Environmental Agreement. Okay, he can do that. Trump took us out, he can put us in. Rejoin the World Health Organization. Yep, let's do that too. Repeal his ban on Muslim immigration. Yep, he can do that. Reinstate the DACA program for Dreamers. Apparently Trump did that with some kind of executive order. Put that back in. Develop a COVID task force on how to control the virus and what kind of federal leadership is needed. Biden's already putting that together. But also begin work right now on a COVID relief package. There's no reason that a bipartisan agreement can't be reached on a COVID relief package. Govern, appoint cabinet secretaries. Goodness, I hope the Republicans don't try to decide to deny him appointments. And another one on Biden's agenda, executive orders to reinstate over 100 environmental or health regulations that DJT repealed. Over 100, just put them back. So for issues for Democrats, start with issues where a coalition can be formed. Get Mitt Romney and Susan Collins, maybe get them to change parties if they need to, get them to change parties. Find some other moderate Republicans, I think they're out there. Govern in the public interest without corruption, regain bipartisanship, regain public trust. So those are my big takeaways. And Ron, I'm going to turn it back over to you for questions, answers, and your comments. I'd love to hear you all weigh in on what you think the big takeaways from this election are.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you very much. I did want to reiterate and stress that as a 501c3 organization, we do not endorse any particular political candidates or parties. We do, however, endorse particular issues and policies, such as...
I was only talking about issues and policies.
Yep. So I love the Citizens United, the Electoral College reform, depoliticizing the Supreme Court, obviously rejoining the World Health Organization and Paris Accords are no-brainers in my head, and reinstating the health and environmental organizations that have been gutted are places where we need to invest in our future. But these are all things that are, how do we move forward and how do we re-engage and how do we build the world that we want to see in the future. So thank you. This has been amazing. Do we have any questions or anything like that? I've got some that have been texted over the time. But I want to give the opportunity for people to speak up before I read specific questions. And if you want to, you can raise your hand, or and I will call on you, or just unmute yourself.
I see my good friend Marie Provine wanting to ask a question.
Yeah, I do. And unfortunately, I couldn't get the Q&A to work, so I'm sorry I didn't send it some other way. I do have a little worry about a postpartum president, but I don't know if you want to speak about that. I just wanted to throw out on the Supreme Court idea, one reform I really like is 18-year terms, which would mean that every president gets 2 appointments and that we aren't attracted to having 35-year-old justices. It might allow us to get some older people appointed. And then the other thing I was hoping you could address, Anne, is, you know, I'm not so in favor of abolishing the Electoral College or going toward having each state go with a popular vote, but I really do like the idea of each state apportioning its electoral votes, you know, according to the way that state came out. It just seems to kind of keep it at the state level. So I just wondered if you wanted to comment on any of those things, and I'll put myself back.
Yeah, thank you. The 18-year term, I think, is a terrific idea, and I should have added that to my possibilities on. So what was the very first thing you mentioned?
Well, I was trying to be kind of cute, saying the problem of a postpartum president.
Oh,
once
a postpartum
that president that we have now is out of office, that person might attempt to keep a bully pulpit going, or bully something.
I'm watching it very closely, and that's one of the reasons I switch over to Fox News to see what they're saying. And one of my adult children, you know, switches on to them. He can stand them longer than I can, but he switches over there and he thinks their rhetoric is changing. He really does. And in fact, I either read or saw last night, one of the Fox anchors is telling Trump he should concede and that he should exit with dignity. Martha McCallum, is that her name or something like that? So I'm watching that. It's possible that once he realizes he's lost, that first of all, his supporters will fade away fast into the woodwork, and he will become irrelevant. In fact, I'm thinking it's interesting. The media is not paying much attention to him right now at all. And that's the best thing. Don't pay any attention to him. Okay, on the Electoral College, I like that idea also of an Electoral College where each state, there's 2 states right now that, or just one, that apportions its electors based on congressional districts. It would be an easy thing. It would be an easier constitutional amendment. But it would still take a constitutional amendment, because states could do this on their own, but who's going to do it? Because why toss away your clout, all right, for a proportional thing unless it's mandated somehow? And the Congress can't do this. It would have, but I think that's a great idea. It would provide some state identity, and at the same time move the Electoral College decision so much closer to what the national popular vote is. So thank you, Marie. Those are extremely good ideas. Back to you, Ron.
All right. So James is asking, can the Supreme Court judges be impeached?
Yes. Some of you know more about this than I do. Yes, they can. But to impeach someone, you have to impeach them in the House. Now, I think the Democrats could get that done. Would the Senate convict? If the Democrats gain the Senate, and I think that possibly, isn't it Kavanaugh that they really think lied during his confirmation hearings? I think maybe so. And that would be, I think, I don't remember for sure, or Gorsuch. I don't remember for sure. But I think it's possible if they had an impeachable offense, such as lying during your confirmation hearings, whichever one it was that was accused of rape and sexual assault and all of that. Yes, correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm sure that's right.
That was, but it would take a 2/3 Senate majority to convict, and I don't see that happening, even if McConnell is in the minority.
Yeah, it takes a big vote.
Yeah. There was some discussion earlier on regarding appointments happening as a result. Let's see. Let me get back to that. Yeah.
Don't ask me a hard question.
The question was around appointments, and I can't find it right now. I think it was Susan Sackett was talking about a appointment and the congressional seats.
Harris's vacancy. How do you fill Kamala Harris's Senate seat?
Oh, it's by the governor.
Yeah,
I think it's the governor of California who appoints someone to that seat. And he's a Democrat, so
Can I make
chances are one of the women Democratic congresswomen may well be appointed to that.
It's for 2 years, just as the way McSally was appointed here in Arizona to fill McCain's seat. And then they'll have election for a senator in 2022.
Okay, thank you.
quick comment that the most obvious path to getting 50 votes plus Harris for Biden's cabinet is winning both of the Georgia runoffs. So if you know anybody in Georgia, you know, get in touch. But there's a prospect of appointing Senator Toomey to a cabinet level position and getting the Republicans to back, you know, him as a Republican, and then the governor of Pennsylvania is a Democrat who could appoint a Democrat to the vacancy. There are workarounds if you want to play hardball.
Well, now
through.
I didn't think that one up, Luke. But Biden has said he might appoint some Republicans. A good idea would be to appoint a Republican senator to his cabinet. What a good idea in a given state with a Democratic governor.
So Chet has his hand raised. Go ahead, Chet.
He's muted.
He is muted. There you go,
Oh,
Chet.
he fixed it. There you go, Chet.
I have a hard time watching Fox also. Sometimes I tune over there thinking that I should get the other side, but I usually can't take it for more than 30 seconds.
No.
But at any rate, Fox did some amazing things yesterday. You mentioned one of them. And the other one was that they called, I believe it was Arizona, before
Yes.
anyone else had.
Yes.
With all of your experience in political intrigue and everything, do you have any idea why that would have happened?
No, and I think it's puzzling because, but you could tell that as the votes came in, the mail-in ballots came in, you could tell that Trump's margin in Arizona was going down by 8,000, 12,000 votes every time another batch came in. And then Biden pulled ahead by 12,000. And I think that's about when they called it. Now, the thing, and I, at the time even thought it was risky because it's true that the mail ballots heavily favored Biden. But if you were watching MSNBC, you knew that they counted the same day vote then they count the mail ballot, and then there's this bunch of mail ballots that were dropped off on election day, and that those would swing back toward Trump. Now, I think maybe Fox News didn't know that. They were just watching that trend line and realized, but AP called it first, AP and then Fox. I thought it was kind of a little bit premature myself.
Well, for me, it wasn't just the idea that it might be premature. It just like, it was almost a statement against Trump, and that's what surprised me.
Well, you know, you're right. And one of the things that's been interesting, the Fox polls, I've been running the polling results, you know, for the last month or 2-3 months, polling results. And their polls are absolutely as accurate as anybody else's. They're right in line with everybody else's, with CNN, NBC, ABC, Washington Post, etc. And it's almost like there's another piece of Fox, that you've got a couple of anchors who are kind of the fire-spitting alt-right type, but the rest of the Fox is still serious journalism, okay? And I think that's interesting, and it's very encouraging. Look, if we're going to make some progress at the grassroots level, at state legislative levels, at, you know, we've got to have Fox News. We've got to have Fox News speaking facts, science, and data to their listeners, because they're not watching MSNBC. But
yeah,
Fox,
I agree, and that's why it was sort of, you know, important that this
yeah, very important, very important. Yeah, Rachel Maddow the other night even mentioned, kind of raising her eyebrows, saying,
yeah,
you know, even the Fox News data, she says, is looking actually, you know, their data is usually right on. I mean, she was acting surprised, and she probably shouldn't. But there are serious journalists at Fox News, and boy, they are so important right now.
yeah.
Well, there were a lot of never Trumpers in the Republican Party, you know, and he was not a really popular guy to a lot of conservatives. So yeah, I'm not surprised that you know, they're realizing, okay, well, show's over. Let's you know, let's get back to work. You know.
Yeah.
So what's your perspective on ranked choice voting as a solution to help us move forward? And then touch briefly on why Trump got more votes than in 2016. It's like his support went up. Yes, Biden did still win, but it's disconcerting to hear that there was more support for him now than before.
Well, ranked choice voting, absolutely, absolutely. This is logical, makes sense, and it just makes no sense, like in Georgia, to have a runoff in January when people could have done their ranked choice voting. And I don't even know for sure what the arguments against it are. I suppose it's that, well, people can't understand. It's too complicated. Oh my gosh, let's don't go there, folks. People are not that stupid. We aren't, and the rest of this country, we're not that stupid. Ranked choice vote. Now, I could see someone arguing, you don't get really serious about that next choice until it actually, you know, comes down to the wire. Well, I don't buy that either. Yes, for sure. Ranked choice voting is a very good idea. It would simplify results, save a ton of money in terms of extra elections and time. No reason in the world not to do it. All right, why did Trump get more votes? Oh, you know, why do people vote for him? All right, I made a list. I didn't go over it, but I did make a list. Why do people who for 4 years have shown he's incompetent, corrupt, lacks respect for democratic institutions, etc., lacks empathy, compassion, so on, why do people vote for him? And I think, here's my list. My number one, they are afraid of the Democrats. Okay, they are afraid of Democrats. And folks, they're afraid of humanists, they're afraid of progressives, they are afraid of the left. One of the things, the wildest words of people on the left become the image of the entire party. Okay, take defunding the police. I just cringed. Oh, come on, don't do that. And then say, well, that's not really what we mean. That's not really what we mean. We don't really mean doing away with police departments. We just mean diverting money from police to social work, mental health, of course. But hey, I grew up, I've worked in organizations my whole life. And if the top of the organization says, we're going to defund the political science department, I know what that means. It means it's not that you just take a little money and give it somewhere, like to the sociologist or somewhere. It doesn't mean that at all. They say they're going to defund the law school. What does that mean? It means it's going to go away, folks. So when the wildest words of people on the left then become the image of the whole party, and I don't understand why this stuff sticks. Abolish prisons. No, not really. We're not going to abolish all prisons, folks. We're just going to try to use them less and not put violent offenders out on the street. We're going to put them in prison and let other people out. We're not going to put pot smoking hippies in prison anymore. But why do these wildest statements from people on the left become the image? I think that's one of the answers. Why did more people vote for Trump? Of course, there's more people in the whole country, but still, he got more votes than any prior person who was elected president. Okay, the other one, socialist. Socialist, socialist, socialist. They say this over and over. Socialist, socialist, socialist. And again, I just kind of cringe. And when Bernie Sanders, bless his heart, says, I'm a democratic socialist, I say, oh, Bernie, why don't you just say you're a Democrat? Why don't you just say you're an American? And it's not, we know that we have all kinds of socialist policies in this country. Thank goodness we do. Thank goodness we have public schools. Thank goodness we have public utilities. Thank goodness that we have a mixed economy, all right? But it's also, thank goodness we have markets. Goodness, I wouldn't want to have to buy my lettuce from just one provider who might or might not decide to plant enough to sell to me. Planned economies don't work very well. But then neither do rabid capitalist economies. They don't work very well either. But socialist sticks when people accuse them, and people are afraid of socialists. Why? I'm not sure whether there's still a hangover from Stalinism or whether it's the last dregs of McCarthyism in this country, or whether it's the dictatorships and Latin American instability. I don't know for sure why. And then there's regulations. People are afraid of Democrats because they're afraid that Democrats are going to regulate them. Well, yep, we do. We regulate personal behavior. We regulate business behavior. Thank goodness we do. Anyway, thanks for the question, Ron. I don't know the answer, but I think some of it has to do with people being afraid of Democrats. And I know this sounds a terrible thing to say to progressives, because I am a progressive. You know, I really believe in these things. I wish we could say that we have a mixed economy, folks. We have a lot of really good socialist ideas here, right? We have a lot of really good regulations. But on the other hand, we don't need to be using bumper stickers as if that it was public policy. Defunding the police may be a good bumper sticker, but it's lousy public policy. Same thing with abolished prisons. It's a bumper sticker. It's not a good public policy. It's not good strategy either. Anyway, sorry I went on and on about that.
Yeah, I totally agree with you about people being afraid of the left and that that idea of socialism and impinging on freedoms. I see that a lot from that rural-urban dichotomy, and hope that we can bring everybody together under a shared understanding. Yeah, and much of that is messaging and framing. Athena, you have something. Go ahead.
Oh, yeah. I wanted to say that, yeah, I totally agree with her. I mean, as someone who more identified on the right way back in the day, yeah, it's totally, I mean, it's fear of socialism. I mean, I even though I know Bernie doesn't really mean full-on nationalization of industry and concentration camps.
Of
When he
course not.
said socialism, I still cringe. I know, and it's like, yeah, it's like, you know, it's like I gotta tell myself, okay, he really doesn't mean that, so you know, it's okay, you know, and but yeah, I know you could say crap like that, or like you said, defund the police. That's wackadoodle stuff, you know, and that's, I mean, you know, that's how they're gonna hear it, you know. I mean, if we said, hey, we should not have the police going to answer calls for people who are mentally ill and possibly suicidal, you know, we should have someone else go out there, more people would probably sign on to that. So, you know, and the fact that, you know, when a lot of the far left people say stuff like that, nobody else comes out against it. You know, I mean, the more moderate Democrats don't say, well, wait a minute, you know, whatnot, you know, and it's just like with Trump, you know, when he's going off with his racist bigot kind of crap, there's no Republicans that are going, you know, we don't support this. So, I mean, it's kind of an endemic thing on both sides that, you know, both sides don't rein in the crazy. And
Someone on the chat room just mentioned, and I really agree, people vote for Trump because they're hurting economically.
yeah,
They don't have jobs, they're unemployed. They blame Pelosi more than they do anyone else for not being able to get unemployment insurance extended.
Yeah, I've seen a large swing for conservatives around the economics of things, and that jobs not mobs was also in chat. Yeah.
Well, Ron, I think the issue with everybody asking why was it so close, when you look at the map, virtually nobody changed their mind. Turnout changed and demographics are always changing. So the states that flipped, like, you know, both sides were more effective than last time at getting their people to show up, and Biden was more successful at that by a slightly larger margin, and Arizona's demographics have changed enough that it made up a bigger gap. But at the end of the day, people are stuck in their ideologies, and it doesn't look like anything really changed on that front.
Wow.
Well, you didn't have someone at the top working to change that ideology.
Mhm.
Any other? Yes, Alex, AZ indigenous people changed the demographic quite a bit. They showed out in force and made their voice clear. It's very.
Hey, Mike, you got your hand up. Mike, Marie, I can see you guys.
There you go.
Hey, hi, Ann. Hi.
Hi, Mike.
I was sorry you didn't go further down your list of reasons why people voted for Trump. Because I think that there's many who did are also just afraid of change. And that change is happening faster as a result of technology and globalization and trade and population growth. And so a certain amount, and then xenophobia. I mean, I think that this feeds into a fear of others, a fear of foreigners taking the jobs away, even though in fact, in most cases, it's technology that's taking jobs away. But that I think does add to this make America great idea, going back, nostalgia idea.
Well, and you're absolutely right. The fear of the change, the demographic change, the fear of immigrants, the fear of people who aren't as white as you are, Mike. The fear of yes, I think they vote for Trump out of fear of those kind of changes. It's not just economic. But there is, I think, a huge racist component to his vote.
All right. Anybody else have anything else before we? Oh, go ahead. I see Henry go. Or
Mute me.
She's
Unmute.
unmuted.
Okay.
Go for
There
it.
you go.
Okay. My question is, what about the people in Congress? The youngsters are so far to the right or the left, they're really ideological, whereas all the old centrists like Olympia Snow and whatnot have all retired because they weren't getting anywhere. We need more centrists in, and hopefully Kirsten Sinema will drag Mark along and become part of the centrists that we need in the Senate. Your comment.
Oh, I agree. I think when I was a lot younger, I was much more inclined toward, all right, we got a little power here, let's use it, folks. And I'm not so much anymore. We've got to have more people willing to compromise, willing to be more moderate, more of a centrist, even if that's not number one what we want. We've got to get people to do that, because that's what governing is all about. It's what politics is all about. One of my favorite things to say is, actually, it's a good thing our elected officials don't all agree with me, because if they did, they would be disagreeing with a whole bunch of other people out there. I don't expect my public officials to be in agreement with me on everything. And we've got to be tolerant of and understanding of why people like Kristen Sinema do what they do. She ran the first time being labeled a wild-eyed leftist, remember? And then people on the left were, quote, disappointed in her. Well, she's a pragmatist, all right? And some could say this is just self-interest and ways to get reelected, but some could say this is civic responsibility also, that we have to learn how to govern. I think Biden is in a way uniquely situated to do this kind of thing. He's a genuinely likable person. He's about as non-ideological in many respects as anyone we could have elected. I was a big Elizabeth Warren fan, and I still am, but I don't think she could have beaten Trump.
All right. Is there anybody else? Chet, I see you have your hand up, but I'd like to give the floor to somebody else that hasn't had the opportunity to ask a question.
Okay.
Anyone? Jean?
Hi, Jean.
Okay, there we go. There we go. I just did the wrong thing. I did. Okay. Hi, Ann. It's so nice to see you.
It's good to see you too.
Presentation. I think we have to remember the enormous influence of the vested interests, for example, in fossil fuels, who are really want to continue. Trump has been a great friend to them. And all of the environmental issues, things that he's overturned, and also the health insurance component. I mean, I believe that both of these entities, and including those who are really in favor of racist institutions, I think that they have poured enormous amounts of money and influence. And I don't have any proof of this, but I haven't read up on it. But I would imagine that they have a lot to do with the fear, with creating fear, and with their messaging through Fox. Because I know people who are for Trump, and they'll just quote off all kinds of things. And it's like they're good people. Where do they come up with these facts? Their facts have to be from Fox. They don't watch public television, et cetera. And they're intelligent people. So, I'm really concerned about messaging. And I think what Ron had said too, on messaging is really important, not only from the Democrats, but also from the Republicans. And I think we have to call them when they put out things that are not true.
Absolutely, I agree. Absolutely. And
All
that's
right.
part of the Citizens United issue, you know, that lets so much money into politics.
Right, right.
Okay, thank you, thank you. I'm going to let Chet ask one final question and then pass it over to Alex to wrap. Chet, one last question.
I guess this is in support of Mary's comment about centralism. You see, I think the right feel that if the government stays out of everything, they will be free. What they don't realize is that they will be subject to a monetary system. And the two extremes on this realm of things is pure capitalism and pure communism. In one case, money owns everything. In the other case, the government owns everything. Well, I think the world, at least a large part of the Western world, has agreed that it's not good for the government to own anything, and I'm sure own everything. And I'm sure most of us would agree with that here. But when you think about money owning everything, which is where the rightists seem to see as their ideal world, they seem blind to the fact that if money owned everything, in a few generations, 2 or 3 families would own the whole world. I mean, antitrust laws is a socialist program. In other words, any law that the government puts in force is really to try to moderate the disaster that would result if money owned everything. And and my problem with the right, you know, when I vote, I just vote a straight ticket. I'm not. My problem with the right is that they believe that money should have control. And I believe the world would be just as big a disaster if money had complete control as we know it would be if government had complete control. And that's just what I wanted to mention.
Thank you, Chet. Alex?
Okay, I just have a couple remarks here. I wanted to say first, thank you, Anne, so much for your presentation today. It's been very entertaining, enlightening, and we've appreciated your voice today.
Thank you.
So yesterday I put up a post on my own personal Facebook page, and for a moment I'm going to take off my HSGP president's hat for just a second. This is just me speaking personally. I'm going to ad lib a couple things into the statement that I said yesterday. So this is just me personally. This is neither an exhaustive nor fully developed opinion. In other words, I'm going to be continuing to think about this probably over the next couple of weeks. But win or lose for either side, I had hoped for a return to decency, kindness, compassion, and empathy in this country. 4 years ago, we saw stickers, t-shirts, and flags saying Trump Pence 2016, fuck your feelings, or make the libs cry. I don't share the same sentiment now that we are transitioning to a new executive officer. It's disappointing for a great many of the American public to lose in this way, and I get it. But let's just pause for a moment. What we here in America are a number of things. First, we're human. Next, we're Americans. We can discuss our country's history of disenfranchisement, bigotry, and so many more issues and make attempts at atoning for these harms. This, to me, is patriotism in action. A love of country so that we can work to heal the harms that we have done and continue to do. There are some that will never see things this way. There are others that may yet be convinced. For me, I'll work for a future that is bright for all of us. It's time for us to find common good. Remember that we are human. Remember that we all make mistakes. Remember that we hold diverse opinions. I would encourage each of us to aspire to find the good in each other, but most importantly, love one another.
Thank you, Alex.
Thank you.
So with that, I'm going to go ahead and wrap up our Digital Sunday Speaker event. If you enjoyed our content, then please click on that subscribe button, contribute to our Patreon account, or even better, become a member of HSGP or volunteer. Thank you very much, Anne, for coming and speaking with us today. It was wonderful. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you for asking me. Thank you. You're a great audience.